All right, with that, I will call the meeting to order at 6:04 p.m. Thank you for your patience. It's Thursday, September 16th, and this is the Community Development Authority. I would ask Michelle to note roll call.
So noted. Oh, thank you.
I don't have any announcements, and I would ask for a motion to approve the minutes of August 19th, 2021.
I'll make a motion.
We have a motion by Doug. Do we have a second?
Second.
Any discussion, corrections, or edits? If not, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed? Motion carries. All right, are there any appearances before the board? Anybody wanting to appear? Okay. There is no old business, so we'll move to new business. We have a public hearing that I will open at 6:05 p.m. regarding the Public Housing Annual Plan for 2021 required by the U.S. Department of Housing and Urban Development. Is there anyone wishing to appear at the public hearing on the Public Housing Annual Plan? If not, I would ask Michelle, did you have anything you wanted to say here?
I just wanted to let everyone know kind of what this is about. We are required by HUD for public housing, Section 9 housing that we are in, that we are required to have an annual hearing just to let folks know about the capital budgets, any changes that we've had. So we wanted to report two things that have occurred that the residents are very well aware of, but two things that the CDA Commission has approved, one of which is the cement repairs that are going to be happening there in the amount of $6,000. And then a little bit over 65 or 6,700. And then as well as the electrical panels that we're looking at doing there so the total is 37,000 is what we're looking at doing. And that is just our requirement to make sure everyone knows. And I think it's for the residents to say their thoughts on it. So, but we do have resident meetings every month. So just to let everyone know that, but we needed to have a public hearing. So we noticed it and did so. Thank you.
All right, I'd ask one more time if anybody wishes to appear. If not, I would close the public hearing at 6:07. 7.2, discussion and potential action regarding identification of redevelopment project areas.
Sure, and I'll go ahead and turn it over to Mark just while he's, let me stop sharing my screen, and I know he wants to share his screen. As you all know, we have been working on a redevelopment project plan at our first technical advisory team meeting on Friday, last Friday, and we ran through some potential sites that we wanted to run through with everyone today. So I'm going to stop sharing and have Mark start.
Thank you, and I will start sharing. So good evening, everyone. You should see my screen now. And this is a memo that was in your packet. I will, breeze through it very quickly. Our initial task with the CDA starting off is to identify redevelopment project areas. These would be areas of focus for redevelopment planning work as part of our project, and they would be different geographic areas within the village. The key characteristics of each redevelopment project area is that redevelopment has already been identified as a priority in village plans, or via this process evolves into becoming a priority. And the second criteria is that each district must have, I'm quoting from statutes now, a predominance of blighted property. And the statute is pretty broad on that question of blight. It can involve things that you typically think of when you look at a property. Boy, that garage is falling in kind of stuff. And it can involve more subtle things like the property is much too small to redevelop. It has very poor driveway access right next to a street intersection, and a host of other things like that. The idea would be that initially the CDA and then the board would nominate, or first the CDA would nominate redevelopment areas that I would lead a group, a small team of us that would be analyzing the prospective redevelopment areas to see if they met the statutory criteria. And then at that point, the CDA and then the village board could adopt resolutions that would designate those as redevelopment project areas. At that point in time, we could commence with the real substantive property owner involvement, public involvement, and plan making within each of those particular areas. The technical advisory team of the CDA did meet on this, of the redevelopment planning technical advisory team did meet last week. We evaluated a number of different areas against the criteria that I'm flashing up here on screen, whether there was support by plans or property owner interest in redevelopment or interest in from the public. And we have heard some interest as part of our comprehensive planning process, certainly. Some initial inkling that we might have a significant number of properties that met the blight definition. Some potential impediments for reuse of the site and the existing buildings on the site or redevelopment on the site by market forces alone, such as cases where you'd have to acquire a number of different smaller parcels to make something happen, or if there was a significant infrastructure improvement that seemed to be impeding the market from making those decisions. We looked at the tax incremental district locations and if a property was in or near that had some bearing. And then we also looked at areas that had an opportunity for significant community impact, maybe along a highly visible street or maybe seemingly suitable for an identified community need like housing or revitalizing the downtown. So what we came up with was a list of 5 potential redevelopment project areas that we'd like to share with the CDA tonight. And if you're ready to get your endorsement so we can begin the technical analysis of identifying whether they in fact qualify as statutory redevelopment areas. And just broadly speaking, they align along 3 corridors: the North Street or Highway V corridor, the Main Street corridor, and the Holum corridor. We have them listed here and they were in your packet. Michelle provided some information a little later this afternoon. That's what I'm going to really focus on here today, which provides maps and some information about some of the qualifications, at least in the opinion of the technical advisory team and me, as to whether these qualify. So what I have up on screen now is an image of the comprehensive plan future land use map as kind of a base, and the identification of the candidate areas for redevelopment. We have the potential to designate up to 6. On this particular map has 5. One of them is fairly large potentially and includes property extending from North and Main down through the Holum Educational Center in the northern part of downtown. So what I'd like to do with you now is just first of all pause to see if you have any questions as to anything I've shared so far, and then go through each of these candidate sites for you.
I don't see any questions, Mark.
Thank you, Jane. I'll keep going. So the first site that we have to share with you is what I'm just calling at this point the Highway V Bend property. It's as you come into the village from the from the west off of the interstate, drive by the water tower. There are a couple of undeveloped or lightly developed properties, one of which is currently in the town of Vienna and about 12 acres. And the second of which is in the village of DeForest, kind of shaped like a dumbbell and about 3 acres off of the north end of Meadowview Lane. These properties have been for sale for a few years. we've had a lot of inquiries from different folks interested in doing a range of different things from, rural house development to outdoor storage yards. In general, the challenge that we've had is with village plans and compatibility with the neighbors. The area is planned currently in the village comprehensive plan and has been for a number of years for 2-family/townhouse residential development. And also the challenge has been the infrastructure asks that we've been offering, and that would be that Meadow View Lane and utilities be extended from the south and ultimately link up with County Highway V, where the current driveway you see here is located. So, we have had, and we still do have some private property owner interest. The lands still are for sale after 3 or 4 years. We do see this site, inconsistent with the comp plan recommendation, as a potential for senior and/or workforce housing of some type, given its proximity to other housing and its proximity close to the commercial areas along V, the downtown. Yahar Elementary is not at all far from here, as are parks within the village. So that's the first prospect. I don't have boundaries drawn on any of these, and that's intentionally so we can kind of figure out where the outer boundaries of these areas want to be based on the statutory criteria and
Mark, you might want to turn your camera off.
so that's site number 1.
You're coming in a little choppy. And he's frozen. It's the night we're having.
And we've lost him. Should we continue or?
See if I can share my screen and. Yeah. I'm gonna let's see.
The maps he's going through, you sent out late this afternoon.
Mhm. And I put those in the packet. So let's see. Okay, here we go. It's hard when this is right there. Coming up. So 1 second.
We used to do meetings with paper and, sitting around a table together. And it worked.
Oh. Okay, so I'll go ahead and talk about the other areas. So as Mark was saying, he was highlighting the Highway V bend right there. And then I will go into 2A, B, and C. And that is all in the North Main and Northeast downtown ID'd for redevelopment or upgrade in the downtown plan. So this has been an area, I think this might be, especially the North Main Street intersection area, one of the most popular areas for redevelopment among the technical advisory team. That's going to include all these areas here, as you can see. We've got Holum here, and then 2A, let's see, no, it's Holum down here. We've got 2A, which is the North and Main Streets intersection area, and that's the area that we had the students come in a few years ago. Last year when we first started the CDI, I think the very first presentation we had was what could be done about that downtown that corner of Main and North Street. So exciting area there. And then the Holm Educational Center. So on the Holm Educational Center, if you look on the GIS, it's really interesting. There's a lot of particular parcels that the area is parceled out to. And so, it's really a discussion of, do you want to try to do the whole area, or do you want to take just part of it? It's, as you can see right here, and I'll try to make it bigger. Let's see here. There he is. He moved rooms. Mark, can you hear us?
I can hear you. I'm in a much better space.
Okay, I'm going to stop sharing. I just started talking about if you can see my screen.
Yep.
Okay.
No, I've been here for a couple minutes. You've been doing great.
Oh, okay. Thank you. I'm going to stop sharing.
Okay. All right, let me begin sharing. Thank you for your patience with me. I'm sorry about that. Okay, you see my emails. Back caught up again. So yeah, Michelle's run through this fairly well. The North Main, it seemed like an obvious choice to everyone on the technical advisory team, in addition to the student presentation that you received, that the village received a couple of years ago. It's highlighted in the downtown plan, the village's comprehensive plan for redevelopment. Holm Educational Center obviously is coming available, a surplus property from the school district. The district is interested in selling it for development. It seems appropriate for some type of housing development, either using the existing building, or if whoever comes in suggests that it's not tenable, demolishing the building and rebuilding something else. And then in between, we have elements of the downtown that extend down to Antique Lane, and then up in west of Stevenson Street that may also fill in and become part of this redevelopment area. So if you want to envision it, again, we don't have the boundaries identified, but the area we'll be studying would kind of be shaped like an L, extending from North Main down to the Holm Education Center, and possibly down to Fireman's Park as well on DeForest Street. So it's by far the biggest area we'd be exploring if the CDA were to green light us here. Has a lot of different opportunities for different forms of commercial mixed use and housing development, depending on a lot of things. I think, and also has a lot of small lots which do challenge the private market and land assembly and interest, and are kind of the areas where CDAs and villages can have a significant impact in helping private owners assemble property. The other thing we can't forget is this general area is also a current source of affordable housing as we look at redevelopment. And I think in general, it's important to remember that redevelopment does not mean knocking down everything in sight and rebuilding something else. It can definitely mean other things, including reusing and revitalizing existing properties. So that's our second area. Again, we broke it into three parts, but it's the second larger area. The third, which was geographically, in my opinion, disconnected a little bit from the second area by the fact that we've got the redeveloped town square, the redeveloped library site, and now the municipal center campus and Fireman's Park that make it, in my opinion, sort of discontiguous from the area two that I've just been discussing. This is what we call in the Market Street corridor. It was identified in the 2015 comprehensive plan as a part of an expanded downtown area. And what that designation allowed is folks along Market Street, if they have a business interest, they can come petition for rezoning or conditional use permit and open up a business in existing property or potentially redevelop the property. It's also identified in the downtown plan, which was first created a few years before that for site facade improvements. The expectation at the time, and I don't think we've heard anything to suggest any different, is that Chase lumber would remain, which is great as an anchor to the downtown. But Chase has set us some ideas over the years to improve the property and even had a plan to develop some mini warehouses on the south end of Market Street a couple of years ago. And some of the, as you know, some of the buildings along Market were originally built for commercial use or mixed use and are in various forms of storage or residential use today. So this is another, potential candidate project. And all these project areas have obvious folks to chat with about their interest in redevelopment or revitalization, and Chase is, an obvious choice within this area, but we will identify others if for each area that's selected. The fourth area that we have identified through the technical advisory team for CDA consideration is what we're calling the main South Street East intersection area. So it's basically the east end of South Street, and includes the DeForest Plaza, the northern of the two large in this area, and also would include potentially the site to its north, which currently has quite a bit of water flowing into it and through it during storm events, but has been the subject of a couple of different development proposals over the last 5 years that have generated a lot of excitement, I guess I would say, within the neighborhood, but none of them have been approved. We've also had proposals kind of in fits and starts to redevelop the bank. I think we even had about 5 years ago an approved site plan to build a new and improved version of the bank that hasn't happened. And a lot of, I guess, community interest in identifying whether this site and parking lot could be improved. And there have been different concepts over the years, including one that the village commissioned from CARPC staff as part of the 2015 comprehensive plan process for potential redevelopment. And that redevelopment plan did not include the southern building that has the pick and save, but did suggest that this northern area could be revitalized, redeveloped with property owner interest for a mixture of commercial and housing development. And other resources in the packet show that concept plan. I can certainly go to that if you'd have any further questions. And then the final area that we have identified for consideration is what I guess we're calling right now the Caro area, because it's currently all owned by Russ Caro, one property owner. It's south of between the new Quick Trip out there and Holem Street is what Russ owns. About 20 acres have not been developed yet. It's been planned for mixed use and mixed density housing, including some higher density housing close to Northtown Road. There have been various attempts to develop the land over the past 20 years, rezoning requests, preliminary plats even approved. There have been various things that have inhibited that from happening. Most recently, 2 years ago, almost flooding that was significant within this area. This is tributary to a major drainage area in Windsor, the farmland, and with the spring thaw, rapid spring thaw in March of 2019 now, this area, a lot of this area was underwater. So since that time, we haven't really seen progress on redevelopment or development of this site. But given its location in the community, close to an interstate, highly visible, right in between the high school and middle school and the business park, Eagle Point is 2-3 blocks away. It's in my opinion, a prime location for different forms of housing and potentially some commercial development as well. So those are the 5 areas that we have, identified for CDA consideration. If you feel you're ready after discussion tonight, the CDA can direct us to say, yeah, go ahead, let's move forward. Let's see if they qualify as redevelopment areas and what the boundaries might be if they do, which we would bring back to CDA either next month or the meeting after that. So I'm going to stop talking now and be available for any questions that you may have of me. Thank you.
Thank you, Mark.
Mark,
Other
this is Mike.
Michael?
Yes,
Okay,
sorry. Just a quick question. So, and forgive my ignorance. So let's say the CDA, identifies these sites, approves them. What's the next process? I'm assuming the full board and statutorily, I guess what's the process? I'm just ignorant. What's the process after the CDA potentially takes a vote on this? What happens next?
So if you're ready tonight to say, Mark, go ahead, and Michelle, go ahead and study these areas, we would do what we call blight determination analysis. That involves looking at every property within this area and offering an opinion as to whether it has one or more characteristics of quote unquote blight. If we have an area where more than 50% of the properties meet that characteristic, it qualifies technically as a redevelopment area. And then it becomes a policy question as to whether the CDA would like to designate it as such, which it could do so by resolution. And then the village board would follow up with a very similar potential action designating the 5 or however many areas that we feel or you feel are appropriate. Following that, then we would actually start the outreach and the planning work within the area to identify more specifically the opportunities, some concepts, and some tools and techniques that would be required or maybe warranted to make redevelopment or reuse happen. So that would involve interviewing major property owners within each area, using CDA meetings and the internet to outreach to other folks that are interested. And then at that point in time, once that process concluded, there'd be a public hearing. The CDA would, following that public hearing, if things go well, recommend approval of the redevelopment plan, including individual project area plans for these or other areas. And then that would have to be approved by the village board as well.
That's great. Thank you. And I'm sorry if you already explained that to the group at the last meeting, but that's helpful.
No, it's been some time, no problem. And we'll have a detailed timeline put together because especially as we get to the middle and end steps, it is very kind of bureaucratic and the process is set up at the state, as you might imagine, to make sure that property owners are aware. We have a notice requirement for every property owner in each redevelopment area towards the end of the process. And, I think an obligation to make sure that everyone who is interested has knowledge as to what's going on and what the possibilities might be as we move forward through the process.
and Rebecca has a question, but before that, Michael, in your packet was a September 28th memo from Michelle that explains a lot of the process, and I found it helpful.
Thank you. I will take a look.
Rebecca?
I might be getting ahead of things on this particular comment, question, whatever, but in that 2B or 2A, 2B, 2C pick,
Yep.
the Yahara River corridor there, if that's going to be obviously in the major development area, one of the things, I don't know if this is something that has been considered, but possibly ensuring that we have, well, obviously we're going to protect that, but maybe developing that in such a way as like a river walk to kind of help anchor some of that development. I was looking at that and I was like, wow, that could really be a special feature for that area. So, and again, I don't know if that's getting ahead of things, but I thought I'd mention that just in case it was helpful.
No,
Worth noting. Worth noting.
absolutely. And I think there's a germ of the idea, we have our fingers crossed that we'll get some DNR grant money to improve the gravel trail that's really overgrown. west of Main Street in this area. There's certainly a possibility to do that through Veterans Park. We've studied the area to the east. It gets a little more challenging based on railroad crossing and existing property ownership and floodplain. But we can open that book again and see what possibilities may exist.
Other questions, Renee?
Yeah, so a question on, there's 5 areas here, and is the goal moving forward to essentially pick the best one? Is it, we think these 3, or if we think all 5 have potential, is it to approve all 5, find out what we can? I guess I'm trying to figure out bandwidth
Yeah.
of what we're shooting for.
The project could end with these 5 or 4 of them, or some combination of redevelopment areas with small area plans for which one of the areas. You could decide for various reasons. Maybe it's the criteria that I listed up in the memo in the packet and went through briefly, that 1 or more don't kind of pass the sniff test, and we could strike them tonight, or you could. We may find that upon investigating, the statutory criteria for blight, that 1 or more areas just doesn't cut it. It just doesn't have those, that preponderance of blighted property, and it may fall away then. You may then, or the board may say, well, even though it passed the CDA tonight, for instance, and even though it meets the statutory definition of blight, for whatever reason, we just don't want to designate this area as a redevelopment area, and then it could fall away then. It could potentially an area could fall away after we've gotten to that step and before the adoption in the winter. So we're able under maybe agreement and also potential balance between being comprehensive and being overwhelming to designate up to 6 different redevelopment project areas.
And I don't know if everyone knows, and you probably said this, Mark, I apologize, but we started looking at 11, I believe, different sites with the Technical Advisory Committee, and kind of whittled it down to these that you're seeing tonight as the ones that made the most sense for us to recommend to you for approval. And I might suggest that until we do further assessment, it would be pretty hard for me anyway to throw something out. I think I need more information. So I would be open to approving as many of these as we could. Rebecca.
Yeah, I think I would need on certain of them, excuse me. I'm thinking of the Market Street particularly, because I've heard a lot from quite a number of folks that are, it's very split on whether or not they're actually wanting that to see that redeveloped or just improved, like taking the existing buildings and homes and creating some possibility of improving on them without destroying or removing or what have you. That's the one area that I question at this time.
Sure.
I'm not saying it's not a possibility. I'm just saying I question it at this point where we've got these other areas that are really prime pickings, so to speak.
Yeah. So, I think we talked at the technical advisory team meeting about a Q&A, and I think that'll be important to put together is what do we really mean by redevelopment project areas? And I want to make sure that you all, are clear that it doesn't mean knocking every building down and rebuilding new buildings.
Right.
It can mean that. It can also mean that it might be a targeted area for a facade improvement program that would allow people to fix up the outsides of the buildings, usually commercial buildings that they have. It could enable expansion of existing buildings where warranted or appropriate. it could include all of the above, you know. So the term redevelop, you know, there's a couple terms here that kind of set the hairs on the backs of people's necks up a little bit. You know, redevelopment is one of them because they envision a bulldozer, you know, clearing everything in its path, and worse yet, them not having any say or having very little say as to when that bulldozer comes out. And I don't think I think that's the furthest thing from the truth here. So that being said, you know, Rebecca, you know, I respect your opinion. If the CDA wants to say, no, we're not ready for Market Street, even under those conditions now, then, you know, it could be pulled off the list tonight, or it could be, you know, like I said, pulled from the list, you know, really at any point during this process, if you think that would be appropriate.
Go ahead.
I think I appreciate that very much. I just know at this point, and I really like the idea of having a Q&A, maybe specific to the property owners in that area before they're actually put on a final list, so to speak.
Mm-hmm.
Because I really think we need to get the property owners along there. They're either going to buy into this or they're going to be very resistant. And I think it's important that they understand exactly what it means before we could truly get full support from them or
Yeah.
not.
Let me ask for some clarification, though. I think if we leave them on the list and approve it, step 6, if you take that September 28th memo, is staff or consultants offered to interview or otherwise obtain input from property owners within the redevelopment areas to inform them of the process plan, gauge their interest and ideas, and build understanding and goodwill related to subsequent steps. So it strikes me that moving forward with inclusion would get that work done.
Yeah, it's kind of a chicken and egg thing. I mean, if an area doesn't even qualify technically as a redevelopment area, which is what we would find after tonight, then we would be getting people excited about nothing. But at the same time, I want to make sure that you as CDA members and the trustees have information that when you do get questions and inquiries, and you know, we can start a webpage tomorrow. I'm not going to promise tomorrow, but very soon in the next few days, to get some Q&A information out. So at least people understand, you know, what it is, or can understand what it is if they're so motivated.
Okay.
If I
Mark,
could,
I'm sorry.
no, go ahead, Michael.
Yeah, just another quick question. Again, I apologize if this was covered, and I dropped off the advisory committee call last Friday. I was up north, just lost you guys, but we talked a little bit about the potential of using TIF. I know the forest is TIF'd out, but potentially if there's an overlay. But what other, and I'm trying to grasp this in my mind how this would work, but what other types of economic development tools could be used or would be used, or financing tools? How does it, just the treetop version? I mean, how does this kind of all come together?
Yeah, you know, there is the potential for the village or CDA to issue bonds to support redevelopment or land acquisition within these areas. Let's say a redevelopment area is identified and a property comes available for sale within that area. And it's a small property that you really can't redevelop on its own. The CDA might, you know, seek local funding or grant funding to acquire that property. So, you know, it's potential, though, you know, that there's bonding, and then the bond could be paid back through the resale of the property. Other villages in the area have done that, including Windsor over the years. And that could be one potential means. It becomes a magnet for potential grants as well, whether they're home or CDBG grants from the state, or other things to have an area identified and specifically marked on village plans for redevelopment helps secure, other monies from beyond the village. In the past, there have been business related funds set up. The famous one, I suppose, was the Chase Fund that provided business improvement grants for the downtown area for a number of years. I don't know. I think those resources have been spent, but can also be, obtained revolving loans where, the idea is that again, through an initial funding source, there would be monies provided for low interest loans for revitalization, facade improvements. The loan paybacks would then be funneled into other loans for other properties over the period of time. Those are just a few that come to mind. The map I have up here now is the tax incremental district map. And, if a property is within a TID and provided that the TID project plan supports it, we could have, potential for TIF funding to support redevelopment. That really works for the North Main intersection area, where at least some of the properties are within tax incremental district number 6. And there are redevelopment activities authorized within that TID project plan. There's other more creative ways we could utilize TIF that we can talk about as we get more towards the implementation part of this process as well.
Sure. No, that's helpful, and I appreciate it. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Yep, go ahead,
I
Michelle.
was just going to say that, at this stage, for all the reasons Mark added and just for economic development purposes, I think I like the idea of keeping it larger rather than eliminating them at this point for those very reasons that there could be facade programs that could be used there, things like that. Before it gets, because we're just studying them now. So before it gets on any kind of list or anything like that, that's more official that we've determined it. I like the idea of keeping them big. I actually met with one of the property owners today, Russ Caro. He was excited that his property was going to be included in a redevelopment area because of all the opportunities it could possibly bring. And he's been trying to develop it for a while. There's other challenges, but so I think at this stage, it's kind of it's a good thing. And then, as we get more into maybe developing the Q&A and really after we say, let's study these and then see what happens.
Rebecca.
One last question, sorry. Related to that Market Street area, and you don't have to say specifically who, have you had discussions with any of the homeowners, the property owners, not on the Chase side, obviously, but along the residential side, specifically about this idea?
No, on the area you're talking about, no, I have not.
Okay.
No, I haven't either.
Because I think that would, I'm loath to put this on a list without at least having spoken with some of these property owners to even find out if they're interested.
And I might just say, if we put them on the list, then we have the authority to go have the discussion. Should they be opposed, the village board could always take them off the list.
Can we not talk with them prior to putting them on a list?
This is Mike.
I'm just
sorry, but
asking.
I just for the record, I want to say I agree with Jane and Michelle. I mean, why close off any options or negotiate with ourselves here? Because it is beginning part of the beginning stage of this whole process. Just for the record.
And maybe I just don't understand the complete
Yeah,
process.
You're breaking up a little bit there, Michael. Yeah, and I think it's really just because tonight we're just looking to study the areas further. Like, yeah, these are worth consideration. That's why I would say, wouldn't you, Mark? We're just looking to kind of, are these things that you'd like to consider?
Yeah. Rebecca, I don't even know, honestly. I don't know until I walk Market Street whether this area will legally qualify as a redevelopment area or not. whether enough properties in this area, general area, have the characteristics to make this a qualifying area. So, we're all operating in the public sphere, and that's great. I had no problem with that, but we are certainly, early in the process. And the last thing I want to do is to get people excited or agitated about something that may not even be a possibility. And the second last thing I want to do is get people excited and agitated about something that they, perhaps fear, but that at least at this point, don't fully understand the implications of.
Nishant,
Yeah, so I mean, the only thing I was gonna say was, as long as one of the steps of the study is to go and, talk to some of the people in the area, I think I would feel comfortable keeping that in the list right now. From what I understand, one of the step is to go and talk to the local folks as a part of the study, so.
Yeah. So what might work for this area, and I haven't thought it fully through, is like, for instance, we might have a one-on-one with Chase. I mean, they own, everything on the east side, more or less. And then we could also then invite, the 12, 15, I don't know how many they're going to be, property owners on the west side of the road to a meeting in the park or in Village Hall to, share with them. And that would be sort of the quote unquote interview for that group of folks. If we get to the point of, again, does it qualify? And if so, does the CDA and board think it's an area that's worth planning for and engaging?
okay. Any other questions? If not, I would entertain a motion to approve the selected 5 sites.
I'll make a motion to approve the selected 5 sites for further evaluation.
Thank you, Renee. Is there a second?
I will second that.
Thank you, Nishant. Any further discussion or questions? Rebecca?
Just as a qualifying statement, I do support this, so long as, at least on that one, we're truly talking about getting input before we actually, getting input from the property owners. That is
Sure.
really big on me. But I do approve this, so.
All right. So all those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
I
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Thank you. And thank you, Mark.
Yeah, thank you. And I'll be leaving you. Good night now.
Good night, Mark.
Thank you.
Take care.
All right, discussion regarding Jefferson Square financials and next steps. Steve?
Yeah, I guess I'll take that. Just want to give you an update. I know you've been hearing from us for a long time that we're getting closer and closer. So now we have 8 months of 2021 under our belt and 2.5 months of the conversion from CDA employees to village employees with benefits and things like that. So I've got a real good handle on where I think things will end up for 2021 and have a good handle on the start of a 2022 budget. So I need to sit down with Michelle a little bit more and hammer out some of the things. The CDA continues to change how it wants to approach, and rightly so, the flips in Jefferson Square, the spending, how much it's going to charge. That's all part of the budget and how we use those resources. So that's further discussion. What we intend to do with a more solid 22 budget. Trust me, CDA's budget's way ahead of the village's budget right now. But we'll use that information as better information to give to Baker Tilly, who's doing that other study. What they had was 2020 data. 2021 is such an odd year with the conversion of staffing and things like that. Getting better handle on costs of flips. We just feel that 2022 budget is a much better data set to use for that bigger picture thing. And we're looking at probably early October to have a sit down with the group, having Baker Tilly share their results. I can chime in as much as we can. Michelle can do that as well. Even Zach and I can do that. So good things are coming up here. So some tough decisions to make on things, and decided to give you a heads up.
The workshop meeting, yeah, that was, so we wanted to do that in early October before the next CDA meeting. So it sounds like that might need to be a night meeting to get everybody to come. And just so that everyone knows, talking about the workshop, what the goals are for that is really just a regular CDA meeting that just focuses on what Steve just talked about, which was focusing with Baker Tilly on the model that they did and the understanding the expenses and the set of basic information and the fee that is charged every month and what that goes for and what that might need to be if it does. So that's the goal of that. And it's going to be lots of spreadsheets, I'm sure. Good stuff. Yeah. And so it might be via Zoom because we probably cannot have this room for another meeting. It's really hard to schedule it. So I'll see, but we're looking at and wanted to see everybody's calendar, and I can do this on an offline, but we're looking at like a Thursday, maybe the second or maybe the first or second Thursday in October.
Thank you. Are we good? Okay.
Yes.
All right, discussion and potential action regarding the capital asset policy, which was included in your packet. Michelle or Steve, do you want to talk through that at all, or?
Sure. So that is a draft, but it certainly, I think, is ready for action if you want it to be. I did borrow it from somewhere else, but certainly converted it to the situation of a CDA. I think our prior meeting was before the audit of the capital asset stuff. So the things that we have done to better how we manage capital assets for Jefferson Square specifically was supported by the auditor. They said, great, we can do that. So that was promising. We have better tools now to do that. So that's good. So all we're looking for is feedback on that. And if people are comfortable, you can take action. We propose that the motion be retroactive to January 1st of 2020. So that fits the audit under that's happening right now.
Are there questions regarding the draft policy that was in your packet? Rebecca?
Yeah, I always have questions. How have we been doing it up to now? How have we been doing this kind of stuff up to now?
So when Jefferson Square was turned over to the Housing Authority, they took the financial information, I believe, of the Carrington Group that built it, and they really tracked it by the unit itself. So there were 62 units plus a clubhouse that were a flat amount, well, not a flat amount, but a set amount that they were depreciating over 40 years. Not everything in those buildings are depreciated over 40 years. Basically, the longest item in that's going to be 40 years or, maybe a little longer than that. So, and then they never retired anything. So appliances and windows and doors and cabinets were never removed, even though they were long gone, with flips and things like that. So they just kept adding the value of new assets without removing the historical.
Oh,
When you do it in a mass unit lump sum like that, it's very difficult to say, okay, we've got a new fireplace, new HVAC or whatever. How do you retire the old unless you component those items? What we took is, say a unit was $90,000. We were able to break that down into the individual components within that unit, including roof, driveways, things like that. So that's what we did. Then we were able to go through, since 2001, all the retirements that have been made or additions, and then we estimated what the retirement value of the unit was. Probably a little deeper than you're asking for, but so it was a pretty significant undertaking, but I feel very confident that the book value is much better. Boy, I really sound like an accountant tonight. I'm sorry.
Yeah, that's actually really helpful because I didn't realize it was done in those lumps like this, and this makes it more streamlined.
Yes.
Okay,
Yep.
thank you.
Other questions? If not, I would entertain a motion to approve the capital asset policy retroactive to January 2020.
So moved.
I'll second.
A motion by Rebecca, a second by Doug. Any further discussion? If not, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Thank you. Item 7.5, discussion regarding intergovernmental infrastructure maintenance agreement of September 23rd, 2019.
I'll just start really quickly just by saying we heard about this agreement by some residents last week or month. So we wanted to put it on the agenda just to have a discussion about it and get some of the background on it. I know Steve was around for that. And also, interestingly, Jim Statt's firm was on the side of the Housing Authority, actually representing it at the time of the agreement. He didn't write it, but he did have someone help him out with that. So wanted to just put that out for discussion, and then we can see at the end of the discussion if there needs to be more of a conversation with the residents about it and about next steps. We can do that too, but just wanted to give some information tonight as it was brought up.
Does Jim or Steve have anything else they want to offer with this?
I guess I can. So sometime in early 2019 or late 18, some residents came from Jefferson Square to the board saying, hey, our roads are deteriorating. Could you do something about that? And village staff are saying it's not ours. These are private roads. This place was intended to be private. Our attorney was also the attorney of the Housing Authority. So he had to step back, and a lot of the information of the history of this was just kind of on the sidelines. We couldn't do anything about it. That's why another firm got involved. We hired a firm as well. And we just kind of talked back and forth. And there is so much transition in this situation that a lot of it is lost. So we came to an agreement with the Housing Authority at that time that says we'll resurface the roads, even though we don't think they're ours. We'll plow them. We will still collect garbage and things like that. The Jefferson Square, well, I shouldn't say Jefferson Square, the CDA pays a payment in lieu of tax to the village, which is equivalent to the local portion of the tax bill. It doesn't include school, county, vocational district. So that's really, they're paying for services of a local government based on their assessed value, basically, which the Jefferson Square pays that through their monthly fee. The CDA then pays it to the village, and we provide service. So that's basically what's going on. We did do a section of that road. I think we're going to do it in thirds. We did a section this year, found out that the base was like, I don't know, not standard village road construction. So that means it was built back in 94, 92, 94 as a private road. The widths are private. There's just so much about it that's private, and that's why we negotiated this the way we did. That's the history as I know it.
Rebecca?
Yeah, I was having a discussion, I don't know, a number of weeks back when I took a tour of the Jeff Square in 509, which was really awesome, by the way. And one of the discussion about that road came up, and some of the people from the from in there were saying, well, if it's a private road, then why is it open on both ends so that anybody and everybody can go through? If it's going to be available for everybody, then shouldn't it be a public road? I understood the concept of what they were saying. So I'm just throwing that out there. Is there, I mean, obviously not the main entrance, but that the other end, because it goes around, correct? But it also goes through. Is there some way to put some, not necessary or removable things so that, you know, if you have like a major disaster, fire can still get through there? But is there some way to limit access at that other end
Yeah, I would
so
say
that
we-
it truly is a private road?
Yeah, I would say that the CDA has every right to, on its private property, to install measures to maybe divert traffic or, you know, remove some of it. You want to be able to get a fire truck through there. You want to be able to get a plow truck through there. You want to be able to get a utility vehicle through there if there's water problems. I don't know if I said garbage truck, but there's still need to get through there for public service. It's not technically a public street, but it's still used by, you know, people to drive through there.
Is it marked private on the other
I
end?
don't know that.
I'm wondering if maybe we could put up something that says, hey, this is a private street. This is for the residential.
Hmm.
The residents here, it's not a thoroughfare.
It's, yeah, so I'm not sure if you're looking at me as village administrator right now or. finance director.
I'm sorry, I was talking
This,
to you. 'cause
this
you
is
brought
not
it
a
up.
village function. This is a CDA discussion.
Oh, okay, so that's what I'm asking.
Yeah.
Is that something we want to consider? You know, not, obviously not for tonight, but maybe to think about it and put it on the agenda even to just to discuss it.
I would open it just for discussion here. I think we certainly could add it to a future agenda to discuss. It's come up 2 or 3 times. When it has come up before, the fire chief has said to me, I won't take any barriers because we got to be able to get through there. And there are a lot of ambulance calls and there's a lot of, you know, need for quick access to that area. So
So
it may be signage, it may be something
Signage.
else, but let's put it on the agenda and discuss it at a future time.
I think it just might help with the distinctions because, you know, hey, it is a private road.
Yep.
It needs to at least be designated that for the general public is what I'm thinking.
Well, let's not over discuss it tonight because it's not on the agenda.
Correct.
And we can get in trouble for doing that. So let's just add it to a future agenda.
So put it on an agenda for action, then a discussion and action. Okay.
Okay. Are we good on that one then?
Now, I think
Only to ask, I think the village has completed all of this agreed upon work at this point. No, we have
just
not.
one third of it.
About 1/3, right?
Okay,
Of the
right.
resurfacing.
that's good to know.
Sorry, I'm trying to get back to the agenda here. If I can get my screen. There you go.
Well, the next item on the agenda is Resolution 2021-706, a resolution supporting Housing Division application for Section 18 disposition application for Section 18 disposition under the U.S. Department of Housing and Urban Development.
I duplicated a little bit in that title. My apologies. This is a resolution that we do as a CDA. We've done it a couple times before. To go toward the Section 18, it needs to be in the packet and we needed a revised one. So this basically, if you, it's pretty clear on saying that the CDA would like to move forward toward Section 18 as we had discussed before. So it's just a resolution to be passed, to be put in the packet for the Housing and Urban Development Department.
All right, are there questions or comments? Otherwise, I would entertain a motion to move that resolution.
I moved it. Oh, go ahead.
Doug made the motion, Rebecca seconded. Any discussion? If not, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
Thank you.
Yeah, we're good. All right, 7.7, discussion regarding draft revision of memorandum of agreement with the Village of DeForest. Michelle?
We'll start it out just by saying, we have talked about this a few times, getting a more comprehensive agreement that was for what was signed in May, which was great. That allowed the CDA employees to become village employees. And what we were looking to do is, as we had more information and more time to get a more comprehensive agreement down, these two next items are kind of related here. We have a draft, and I know you didn't have a whole lot of time to read it, but we really wanted to make sure you knew we were working on it. So we have this is a draft from Jim, and I don't know, Jim, if you want to kind of run through it just real quick, just to talk about what is in the agreement and how it's structured. And this is really for, I think, a good idea for the CDA to just talk about what is in the agreement, how you might want to see it move forward. And then after that, we'd like to get an extension because it actually would have to be passed tonight to make it for the October board meeting. Or if we don't pass it tonight, we'd pass it in October, and that would be after all the board meetings. So we'd be past the October 31st deadline anyway. So we'd like to have a little more time to review and to make this really good. So I put the resolution extension till December 31st. So I just wanted to go through this agreement so you knew what was going on and that you had some input before we actually sent it to you for approval. So Jim, do you want to go through this? Does that make sense?
Sure, sure. And if I do this, can everybody still see and hear me?
Yes.
All right, because I brought it up on my own full screen so that it's much larger and I can see it. Intergovernmental agreements, there's authority for doing that in the statutes. And what we're trying to do is, as you recall, right now, the employees are now hired by the village, and the CDA reimburses the village for all costs related to the employees. Then we tacked on a set dollar amount for the work that is done on behalf of Jefferson Square and on behalf of public housing. And that was just a placeholder to get some money and some recognition that the village was going to do a bunch of stuff on behalf of Jefferson Square and public housing. And this agreement tries to describe in a little more detail what it is those functions are and who has responsibility for what, and what share of costs or how costs are shared between the village and the CDA with respect to the people that are working on CDA stuff. And we also try to deal with management because we have different roles here. You have Steve and Michelle and other village employees who are working on CDA work. And in one sense, their relative positions, at least Steve and Michelle, flip-flop depending on whether they're working on village stuff or CDA stuff. And so we're trying to, this one breaks out finance director to make that a little less cumbersome between the two of them so that they can just, be working together on this stuff and not have to worry about who's reporting to who. And so that's why you can see that there's some blue marks, there's some red marks, there's some yellow marks. That was discussions with Michelle and Jane and Steve and I trying to get this into a format that, at least gets us started on how this relationship between the village and the CDA is going to work. And we get to section 6.7, sort of the meat of it, and we punt totally and say, we don't know yet. And that's really what Steve was talking about earlier with the reports that that Baker Tilly are doing and all the budget work that he's doing. 6, 7, and 8 are where that all goes. And, so that's really the meat of what we're trying to get to next. And as Michelle said, and Jane said, we're not there yet. But then the rest of the agreement just talks about how the two entities kind of deal with each other, and deal with all the stuff that has to happen, that the CDA, that the village is doing for the CDA.
Okay, Steve?
Yeah, I'm going to be bold enough to bring something up. So the page that's up right now, we initially started this payment, which suggested a payment from the CDA to the village for the effort the village has taken on. It was $1,000 per branch, so to speak, public housing, Jefferson Square. But that was basically because there was still an agreement in play for the previous executive director, which that has run out in June at some point. So certainly there's amounts available, or should be amounts available to increase that contribution. And I think that's another thing that we'll be talking about and bringing up to the CDA at some point. And I don't know if it's the village asking for more money or the CDA offering more money or what, but that is certainly something that I think should be looked at. And I have some tools that can help understand that as well.
Okay. So tonight, what we're looking to do is to approve this draft agreement.
No, what we were looking to do is just kind of put that for discussion to see if everybody, if there were thoughts, or if, we wanted to put it on another agenda, just to kind of get out there the framework of what we were looking at, so it wasn't a surprise at some point. And then the next agenda item is the resolution for a continuation and extension.
Okay.
Yeah,
Right.
sorry for the confusion.
No, I'm just trying to clarify. I'm easily confused, as they say. Okay, are there questions on this agreement? Renee?
Maybe one point that kind of might help with that too is this is obviously a two-party agreement, so the village has to agree to it as well. And this is just the starting point of the CDA trying to figure out in its own head how that would work with the village. And then obviously it goes to the village.
Okay.
And the same thing with the extension. It's the CDA basically asking for an extension, and then it goes to the village to approve that extension as well.
Thank you. All right. Renee had her hand up.
Just to clarify, so we'll clearly have a final document to approve that would then go to the village. We would approve, go to the village for approval. If both agree, it's an agreement.
Yes.
Okay, and all we're doing tonight is just looking at the fact that it's in progress.
With this agreement. And then the next item is to approve extending the current agreement until December 31st.
Okay, thank you.
And a copy of the current agreement was in this packet as well. So you should have that. Okay?
I have a question too.
Yes,
So
Doug.
the idea is to keep the CDA expenses as actual as possible from what goes to the village. Is that correct?
Yes.
So that's what you're working on to come up with that number.
Yeah, we have to talk more as a subgroup, I think, but I like the idea of a flat amount that can be changed maybe annually, but I don't want to start tracking Michelle and I's time. I don't know if that's good English or not. And that, we don't even do that at the village level. We have salaries and we allocate that over various departments once a year. That's how we work it. So I think practically it just makes sense. The CDA knows what they're up for a year ahead. The village knows what it's up for. And it really gets down to what is the CDA expecting the village to do for them? Not necessarily who, not necessarily even titles of the village employee, but we want our finances solid. We want budgeting done. We want a cash management handled. We want the individuals at the facilities to be taken care of, forms to be filled out, all that fun stuff. I think that's really what this is about. And we'll work toward that.
Okay. Any other questions? Oh, I'm sorry, Rebecca.
Just a quick question. So on that 7, and I guess 8, one of them, it looks like you're trying to decide between a percentage versus a specific amount. What would be the advantage of one over the other?
I think the flat amount's more predictable
Okay,
for budgeting purposes and funding purposes.
okay.
Yeah, I think if we can keep it more I just think it's better, sorry. Percentages are more complicated and can vary a lot.
Okay, good. Anything else on the agreement? Otherwise, we'll move on and know that we'll get the agreement back to look at once again. 7.8, Resolution 2021-707, a resolution extending period of memorandum of agreement with the Village of DeForest. And this is the one that is for our existing agreement that we want to continue until December 31st.
Exactly.
Any questions on that? So if not, I'd entertain a motion to approve that resolution.
I so move.
Rebecca made a motion. Is there a second?
Second.
Renee made the second. Any further discussion?
I have
If
one
not-
item, I have one item to discuss.
Oh, Jim?
There's a typo that should be fixed at some point in the resolution. It's the chairman of the CAD. That someone can scratch that out and put CDA, and then we'll be in better shape.
Thank you. We'll make
The
some.
last line.
We'll fix it before it's signed.
There you go. Should have caught
Okay.
that before. Sorry about that.
No, thank you. Any further discussion? If not, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries.
Thank you.
All right. Director's reports, treasurer?
I don't have a treasurer report today because I had my own technical difficulties. today. I went in to log into our accounts and I couldn't log in, so I couldn't verify any of the amounts, and I don't feel comfortable putting a report forward without verifying the amounts.
I understand, and we'll have a report next month. Thank you. All right, Housing Division?
I do have just a couple of updates that Ron and Zach wanted me to convey. They weren't here today. Zach is taking some much needed vacation, and Ron, I said, your time is better spent on other things for this evening as you don't have anything. So I just wanted to give a couple of updates from them. On the cement repairs, they think those are all marked and should start in 2 to 3 weeks. So just wanted to let you know that's moving along. And they're trying to firm up the schedule for the repairs that need to do the clubhouse, but we don't have a great schedule for that yet. So it's materials and things like that. So, and workload. So we're going to get that for you as soon as possible, but wanted to let you know we're sticking on it. And wanted to let you know, unfortunately, we did have 2 residents who passed away this past weekend in Jefferson Square. And so really sad, one of the funerals was today, Verna Schur, and then Joanne Foss is the other one. And so we're, convey our sympathies to the families and, meaning that will probably bring 2 more units up in the near future. So we have right now just wanted to give an update on the turns. We have the 716 DeForest Street, which we all talked about and had the presentation from Ron and Zach last month about doing a basic turn, and they are in and doing that turn now. I talked to a real estate expert today. So that person told me kind of how to go about doing some comps on the life lease. So we're getting in that area to do that. And if anyone else, I know we had talked about other people maybe trying to reach out. So if anyone else has any updates, let me know. But we have the 716 to Forest Street is being turned right now. We have the Dolores Coil unit, which I can't remember the one, it just came open a week ago. So that one is going to need to be turned. And then we have the 3 others. So just, it's coming on. And so that'll be something we'll probably need to discuss about time and turns. But I think the guys felt really good about the conversation we had last month on the basic turns, and then going from there, assessing each unit as they come available.
Rebecca?
Just a quick question. So when we're turning them, I know we have a waiting list, correct?
We do.
Okay, so once the terms are figured out, then we'll be able to start on that list.
Yes,
Start
the
contacting.
other thing we want to talk about is the leases. So that is something I think we also talk about at the workshop that we do, that meeting is kind of, and we had talked about getting you kind of the copies of the leases. And so the types of leases that are out there, also getting them to Jim for legal review, just to see, how we would like to structure them. I think that needs to be decided as well. So that's to be decided. That's on the list. Yeah.
Other questions?
And Michelle, are you getting input from this legal expert type on that? How are you getting some input on that, or is that just something that
No, you're our legal expert.
no,
I was
well,
talking
guess
about,
maybe not-
I
not-
meant, I talked to did I say legal expert? I meant real
You
estate.
said real
expert.
I know, and I did too. That's what I meant too. So financial terms, and because historically there'd been the 2 models that
Yeah.
neither of them seem very sustainable. So
Mhm.
is there a sustainable model that you think about? Or
Oh,
is
I
that
see what you're
still what we're
saying.
looking for?
It's hard to get advice on the life lease model. That is the toughest part that I've had is that they aren't even doing really comps in MLS, the database for life leases anymore. So it's really hard to get that's something kind of that tangible structure. We are working to get with potential other providers to get that. So we're working on that at this point. But yes, that is something what I would like to do is, if we can get a kind of a draft and get that by the commission and you, like a template.
Yeah, that'd be good. Because the rest of it is, kind of just more typical stuff of who does this, who does that. And that's kind of baked in already, because that's just how you operate.
Mhm.
But the fee that's going to apply is a whole separate discussion. But the basic terms of what you're getting and what you get back, that's the heart of what we're trying to figure out, I think.
Exactly.
And what will the market bear for those things?
Exactly. And I feel pretty confident that we have, when we're getting this turn, because they're already doing it, the painting and the basics, that we'll have some answers to that for this, at least this one unit. And then we can start with this one unit and get that going and then start on the next one.
Okay. Other questions? Okay. And moving on to, we did redevelopment. Is there any more on redevelopment?
No, thank you very much.
And just back on the housing, will we now be ready to submit section 18?
Yes, and what I will have an update for you in October on that. I'm meeting with Tom Landgraf and the gang, who are consultants, having us do that on September 22nd. I've met with them already once, and we're meeting to get kind of a timeline in the process. That's the only piece we need, was the one that we passed tonight. And then we have to do some of the other things like create the instrumentality, the nonprofit instrumentality. So I have Jim and you on a call with them next week just to make sure everybody's understanding what we need to do with that and can take the next step. So that's the next thing that needs to happen, is that meeting with them and with Jim for legal counsel. And then we'll have that timeline to you all in October.
Okay, great. Thank you. All right, a lot of business tonight. I don't know of any communications, and we don't have a closed session. So I would ask if there's any other business to come lawfully before this authority. Go ahead.
Just one thing. I know you were working very hard on this little packet. I would request that we get our packets in a little bit more timely manner. I literally only had about 2.5 hours to look at this. So just on that.
And I appreciate that. And I know Michelle has been working hard on that, but she's been,
Understood, and that is not my goal. My goal is at least 48 hours, but I didn't hit that time. And so I really apologize to everybody for that, for the delay in that, getting that to you.
we understood why she was extraordinarily busy. So with that, I would entertain a motion to adjourn.
I move to adjourn.
Is there a second?
Second.
We have a motion and a second to adjourn. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? I can't believe there's any.
Thank you, everyone. And
Thank you.
yeah, thank you sorry about the technical difficulties. Have a good evening.
Thanks.
Bye.